Hi, I'm Bill, and it's been a hot summer, and like all British people, I'm not good in the heat, and I caught so much sunburn. Here's a video of my back from earlier. Ladies and gentlemen of the class of '99, wear sunscreen, because if you don't, the heat and the searing pain will keep you up all night, and you end up watching the 1989 film The Wizard. You don't need sunscreen, do you? This is not relevant to you. You are covered in fur. Anyway, that's what happened to me, and I have some thoughts. The Wizard is one of the films of all time. It stars a young Fred Savage, Christian Slater and veteran actor Beau Bridges as their father. This film was released just after his starring role alongside Jeff Bridges in the romantic comedy The Fabulous Baker Boys, which was a proper film. Not sure what he was doing in this feature-length Nintendo advert. Christian Slater wouldn't hit the big time for another 2 years in the absolutely massive Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, and I feel like Fred Savage could do a feature-length Nintendo advert today and it wouldn't be weird. The token girl and love interest for Fred Savage is played by then child actor, now musician Jenny Lewis. She put out her 5th album last year. It's a bit too country for my tastes, but well done. Our central hero, the Wizard himself, is played by Luke Edwards, who doesn't have a Wikipedia page, but also very few lines, because his character, Jimmy Woods, suffers from severe PTSD following the death of his twin sister Jennifer. Oh yeah, this Nintendo advert is starting out pretty dark. The whole concept is pretty weird, actually. Spoilers ahead, obviously, but the film's 35 years old. This is a story of two brothers, Jimmy and Corey Woods, as they travel to California to play some video games. The original full cut was 2.5 hours long and has a little bit more of the backstory of the brothers, but I'm not watching that. And can you imagine if we got a 2.5 hour long Nintendo advert? The cinema release starts with Jimmy just wandering down a road with his lunchbox being picked up by the police. We learn that he wants to go to California and that his mum's remarried. That's basically the whole setup. Jimmy saw his sister drown 2 years prior, and the father turned to alcohol and the family fell apart, and this kid's life purpose is to take that lunchbox full of photos and mementos of his sister to California and leave it there because it was the last place the family had a holiday together before Jennifer drowned and the last time they were all truly happy. I will remind you at this point that this is a Nintendo advert. Horrible tragedy tearing a family apart is a trope as old as time, and Jimmy having PTSD after that is fine. But it's clearly not just PTSD. There's obviously a lot more to it. His neurological disorder isn't named in the film, but it's giving autism. In fact, it's very obviously autism.
Though Jimmy is a heavily traumatized boy, he has a certain fixation with building, stacking things. These little monuments he makes, I'd like to think that they mean something. I'd like to think that he's searching for a way to express himself.
And I'm no expert, but I'm not aware of anything in PTSD or autism that would cause Jimmy to make the set of decisions that sees him wandering around a dirt road in Utah towards California. There is no reason for him to take all of the photos to California. He knows that the photos aren't actually Jennifer, and taking all the photos of your dead relative to the place where they were last happy and just leaving them there makes much less sense than just keeping the photos. Wanting to visit California again with the family, sure, I can imagine that, but he's just wandered off on his own. Also, at his age, he would know that walking from Utah to California just isn't realistic. Just like the broken family trope, filling your plot holes with autism is something writers have been doing since forever. We later learn from older brother Nick that Jimmy basically stopped speaking after the accident.
You're gonna put him in a home, Nick!
He hasn't changed ever since
Dad.
Jennifer. He doesn't do anything, he doesn't say anything.
Heavily implying that Jimmy was fully verbal before. This line sucks, because instead of having a nice story about a family with an autistic child who were doing just fine until this horrible tragedy, we have a kid who caught autism from the horrible tragedy. I don't need to tell you that you can't catch autism. Andrew Wakefield is a fraud, anti-vaxxers don't at me. I got a bit too real for Minerva just then. While PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder by the way, I should have said that sooner, is sometimes diagnosed as autism, PTSD doesn't cause people to go non-verbal in the same way. So someone with PTSD might go non-verbal in response to a stressful situation, or they might slur their speech or have other speech problems temporarily in that situation. Jimmy presents in the film a lot more like someone who has just never developed verbal skills, as is common in many autistic children. He's not shutting down as a response to stress, this is just who he is.
Will you listen to me? See, this is what he does all day. Nothing.
Except that he caught it 2 years ago when his sister died. Christian Slater says he's not handicapped.
Even if the one boy is handicapped.
Hey, look, he's not handicapped.
Whatever he is.
Like, that would be a bad thing. And, like, what is he then, my dude? Is he just a bit under the weather? I can only assume Jimmy's parents just didn't pay any attention to him whatsoever and simply didn't notice that he was non-verbal autistic while his sister was still alive and he was still happy. The mother and wicked stepfather put Jimmy in an institution, and his brother Corey breaks him out and says he'll take him to California.
California?
Not because it's where Jimmy wants to go, but because Corey wants to run away from his big brother and his dad fighting, so he threw some darts at a map of the USA and one hit California.
California.
So the dad and the brother go to find them in their pickup truck while the mother and evil stepfather hire Mr. Putnam, the creepiest child catcher in the West, to make sure that Jimmy is not only found but also molested as soon as possible. They specifically do not care about finding Corey.
What about Corey?
Well, Corey wants to run away, doesn't he?
Mr. Putnam then explains to the father that if someone other than him finds Jimmy, he doesn't get paid. Which sounds like bollocks to me, and suggests that the man who's made his career finding runaway children isn't even a little bit interested in the welfare of the children he's trying to find, which is a massive red flag. Jimmy and Corey make their way to a bus station where, apparently like everywhere in the Western States, there's a Nintendo PlayChoice 10 arcade machine. And you'll never guess, this shocked me to my core. The autistic child, right? Jimmy just happens to be, get this, a savant. To my knowledge, this is the only piece of media that has an autistic savant. Yeah, the only one. I'm just going to wait for this list to scroll past. No idea what it is. Yep, there it goes. Actually, I shouldn't be too sarcastic. The autistic savant trope is probably the only reason I have a job. But yes, it's now full-on Hollywood autism. It's time to get our checklists out, with thanks, as ever, to tvtropes.org. White, cisgender, heterosexual male? Check. Beanpole or geek physique build? Check. Child? Check. Savant? Check. Lacking empathy or emotional expression? Check. And we'll see more of that as the film goes on. Jimmy does not express an emotion outside of California until the end of the film, because of course. Doesn't talk or talks too much? Check. Him being non-verbal is pretty much his only character trait at this point. People think he's weird or creepy. Well, we haven't seen many people yet, but what's his problem? Oh, nothing, but he'll kick your ass at Double Dragon, is pretty common throughout. Totally unable to live a normal life and a burden on those around him. I'll remind you here that this kid's first plan to get to California was to walk through the desert with nothing but a lunchbox full of photos, a journey that would have taken him about 8 days, if he walked continually at a normal adult walking speed. Portrayed as not having a fulfilling life. Sure, they put him in a home. Inspirationally disadvantaged? Well, that's a big check. He's pure and magical and superpowered, and his dream is to go to California. I've been to California. Anyone can just go to California. The exception, sort of, to normal Hollywood autism is in his special interest. Commonly, people with Hollywood autism will take a special interest in something really niche that neurotypical people don't tend to care about. Here, Jimmy's special interest is Nintendo. In 1989, that's a kind of niche autistic sort of interest to a lot of people. Except that this is a feature-length Nintendo advert and everyone inexplicably loves Nintendo. There are Nintendo consoles and arcade machines everywhere. That's why it's only kind of an exception. It feels like this film wants to have its cake and eat it. Part of his Hollywood autism is loving Nintendo, but also, completely unrelatedly, every other living person also happens to love Nintendo. He also repeatedly builds the same structure out of blocks that looks like the stage of the contest at the end of the film, because Hollywood autistic people are magic, but that's not really an interest, more of a coping ritual. Anyway, let's meet Haley.
I'm Haley. If you don't tell me what you're doing, I'm gonna scream. It's his problem.
He's just shy.
Shy a few bricks, I'd say.
No, he's okay. Just kicked ass on Double Dragon.
Get out of here. Him?
Yeah, he could wax your tail.
No way.
Wanna bet?
In this little interaction, we learn basically how the whole film is going to play out. This is a film where these two brothers, who will obviously be joined by Haley, make their way to LA by betting people that Jimmy can beat them at Nintendo after they underestimate him by thinking he has just regular autism instead of Hollywood savantism autism. Obviously, Jimmy beats Haley. The kids miss their bus and go to a diner where they play Ninja Gaiden in the table, and Haley says the name of the film.
He's a wizard.
When the cinema audience presumably honked and clapped like trained seals. She comes up with the whole premise as I just described it, and shows the boys a magazine advert for a video game competition that happens to be taking place in California. The first prize is $50,000, which in 2024 money is $126,000, and someone's just going to give that to a kid who's good at Nintendo. Haley gets to join them and take half the prize money if she can help them get to California. Hooray! You can count the female characters in this film on one hand, and apart from the mother to Jimmy's therapist at the start of the film, none of them ever interact, so this film does not pass the Bechdel test. As though you needed telling. Mr. Putnam and the dad both show up at the diner just after the kids have left and smash each other's cars up a bit. Although the setup for them being antagonistic makes no real-world sense, it is a lot of fun and provides some of the tension in the film. What happens to the kids is pretty clearly set up and obviously isn't going to deviate from the formula. But with these guys, we genuinely don't know where the film's going to go, so it's fine, let them fight. Meanwhile, the kids are on the back of a truck and Haley explains that her dad's a trucker and she knows truckers. Haley kinda starts flirting with Corey by getting him to look at her legs, but the cow cuts them off to move the scene along.
Who's your mom?
She packed it in. She was a showgirl. Great legs. I got her legs. What do you think? Okay.
Then the truckers rob them. Cut back to the dad, and Nick's found Corey's old NES on the back of the pickup truck and fixed it. We get some footage of Super Mario Bros. 2, then back to the hitchhiking kids. They find two guys playing a Nintendo game, though rarely we don't see what it is, and they bet the $4 they have stashed away and somehow turn it into $47.12 and a bunch of Nintendo Power magazines. I don't know what bets occurred to make that happen. Then some bikers find them and they ride along to the tune of Send Me an Angel by Real Life because they're like Hell's Angels, get it? This song makes the interminably long travel montage even longer. So while they're doing that, I'll tell you a little bit about how this film came to be. The president of Universal Studios went to Nintendo of America's marketing heads to talk about doing a film about a video game. He had this idea about a film where kids travel to a big video game contest featuring Nintendo games. His concern was getting a quick and easy film ready for Christmas 1989 because of delays to the Jetsons film that would instead release in 1990. This worked great for Nintendo. The 1988 microchip shortage had meant a delay in Super Mario Bros. 3 getting released outside of Japan until 1990, and Nintendo was actively looking for promotion opportunities, and The Wizard couldn't have come at a better time. It worked too. Universal got a big hit in the cinema because people wanted to see Super Mario Bros. 3, and the big hit in the cinema led to more people going to see Super Mario Bros. 3. And round the hype train goes. During production, Nintendo would get oversight of video game footage that Universal had licensed, just to make sure the games look good. Which begs the question, why in this scene are they playing F1 Dream? That's a Capcom arcade game that never got a NES release. Also, why are they not playing F1 Dream? They say they are, but that footage is clearly Taito's Top Speed inside an F1 Dream cabinet. F1 Dream is the only game mentioned in this film that you can't play on a NES, and Top Speed is the only game shown in this film that you can't play on a NES. I know why they didn't use Rad Racer, and we'll see why in a bit, but they could have used Mac Rider if they wanted a driving game that was both in arcades and on the NES. Anyway, I enjoyed seeing Beth Grant in this scene. This was only her third film, so we're witnessing the beginning of an incredible career.
I gotta spell it out. Roger!
You probably know her as that one character who showed up in one episode of your favourite TV series, but damn, she made it memorable. Then the kids immediately go and meet Lucas, because a guy tells them Jimmy will never beat him, and we get treated to a little advert for the Power Glove, and the reason they didn't play Rad Racer in the diner. You all know this scene, but let's enjoy it together.
What is that? I don't know.
Power Glove. I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
The Power Glove was so bad, in fact, that it was only on the market for 1 year, and this film just happened to be in that year. The film advertised the Power Glove, and if you bought the Power Glove, there was a leaflet inside the box advertising the film. It's another marketing Ouroboros. Jimmy doesn't want to play, then we cut to Nick and Sam almost having a heart-to-heart, but instead playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in their motel, and honestly, I can relate. The next scene... this one kind of bugs me too.
Jimmy! No, Jimmy! What's the matter? I don't know. He builds these things. It means he hasn't gotten better.
Corey talks to Jimmy like he's broken. He's not working right. We're giving the autism robot all the right inputs, but the output doesn't make sense. But also the robot's human enough that we can get mad at it. Haley works out that he's not disappointed at losing, not that he played in the first place, but he's jealous because Corey put his arm around her and she's also annoyed at that, so that's fine and he shouldn't have did that.
Just keep your Power Gloves off her, pal, huh?
But Corey says,
He doesn't even figure that way.
and it rubs me up the wrong way because it's coming from that false belief that autistic people don't have emotions and don't form connections. In a way, the film handles this kind of well if we forget the whole caught autism from trauma angle, where Haley says,
And what if he does?
then Haley loses all the credit she got from saying what if he does by calling Jimmy a basket case,
I'm not going to be responsible for making him more of a basket case.
and then they get robbed again. This is where we learn what happened to Jennifer and what's in the lunchbox, but I told you all of that already, and Jimmy gets one of his few lines in the film.
I'm gonna go find a telephone and call my dad.
You're quitting? You can't quit, not now.
Look, the contest is in 3 days and he hasn't even won half the games Lucas has. I mean, look at him. It's over, Haley.
You're a quitter, Corey. And I don't care if you did like me. Your attitude sucks.
You wanted me to like you?
Not anymore.
Great.
Corey, I don't want to quit.
Jimmy!
Oh, you want to play? He wants to play. You're not quitting here, okay?
This film's treatment of autism continues to be cliche-ridden when halfway through the film the non-verbal autistic kid suddenly says exactly what he needs to say to get all the characters to come back together after a falling out and to get the adventure back on track.
I don't want to quit.
Like, come on. The audience has to see the autistic kid getting a little better. Like the whole trip to go and play video games is really about curing his PTSD-induced autism. I'm starting to think this film didn't have any child and adolescent mental health experts on staff looking at the script at all. But this film would not be made today. And that's a good thing. We don't need any more of these redundant, inaccurate, borderline offensive portrayals of autism spectrum conditions, scripted, acted and directed solely by neurotypical people whose only understanding of mental health comes from other films also made by neurotypical people. This film isn't just a Nintendo advert, as it turns out. It's also a very dated and wrong portrayal of autism. It's a cult classic of 1980s cinema, extracted from the cold heart of capitalism. and sanitised through marketing men to get the audience to open their ill-informed hearts and wallets, while they hold back our cultural and social understanding of people with neurodevelopmental disorders for a quick buck. Or, as the ever-charming Mr. Putnam puts it in the next scene,
looking for a couple of kids. This one's a mental case. Have you seen him?
Then Sam Woods and Mr. Putnam smash up their cars some more, and Woods loses by driving forwards into Putnam's rear. We all know now not to do that, but to be fair to them, Destruction Derby hadn't come out yet. Then we meet Hayley's friend Spanky and see Hayley being suspiciously good at gambling. There are games in casinos that have some element of skill or knowledge to them, but they're playing craps, which is pure chance, so I guess she can see the future now. Maybe she's catching Jimmy's Hollywood autism. Since we've gone a little while without seeing any Nintendo, we get an advert for the Nintendo hotline and a big training montage with Jimmy in the arcade playing more Play Choice 10 and Top Speed. It's weird how they got the rights to show this one non-Nintendo game, but not name it. Afterwards, Mr. Putnam tracks them down and we get this iconic scene.
He touched my breast!
What the hell are you doing?
Absolutely perfect delivery. They cut that "he touched my breast" line in the showings of the film on Nickelodeon and the Disney Channel. So I guess Hayley just screamed and pointed in that version. I guess it kind of works because here's this guy who's just run into an arcade and literally tried to carry a child out of it. Also check out this bit where Mr. Putnam stands there for a few seconds and then throws a guy on the floor for literally no reason. Hayley and Corey have a heart-to-heart on the roof of Hayley's trailer, and whenever a character in a film or TV show says,
My mom, she had this little problem.
it means gambling. She says she wanted to use her half of the contest winnings to buy a house. A house! Anyway, I looked it up, and you get a house in Reno in 1989 for between $75,000 and $80,000. So the $25,000 from the tournament is a hecking good deposit, and it's half of what they're just going to give to a 10-year-old child. It's not clear who's running this tournament or why, and nobody's asking. I think I'd be asking. Also, there's this stupid conversation.
It's like the Adventures of Link. He has to find Zelda. You have to find a house. Same difference. Boy, is that sexist.
Firstly, if you've played Zelda 2, you know that Zelda doesn't need to be found. She's right there on the first screen having a little sleep. Secondly, finding a house is nothing like finding Zelda. There's loads of houses. They're everywhere. And you just buy one. And thirdly, what's sexist here? I mean, the princess trope to begin with, sure, but Hayley knows video games and she would know that Zelda is about rescuing Zelda. It's not new information, so she must be talking about Corey's comment, right? That comparing Zelda to a house is sexist. I guess it kind of is. He tries to kiss her, she pushes him away, then he calls her gay.
I am not kissing a boy. A girl, maybe?
So she kisses him to prove him wrong, I guess, because this is 1989. The shifting around afterwards is kind of cute though, I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, Mr. Putnam is set free and then he immediately does this.
Yeah, information. I'm looking for Brooks. Reno. BROOKS. I touched her breast. She doesn't have any breasts.
Sure, creepo. It's not explained how he got Hayley's name. I could buy that maybe the police let it slip, but in this situation, how would the cops know her name? They didn't take a statement from Hayley or even really get a good look at her before she ran away. So maybe when Mr. Putnam grabbed Jimmy, he also caught the Hollywood autism. He takes Jimmy, like we all knew was going to happen.
You just made me some money, Space Case.
And Hayley rescues him with all her trucker friends.
So you touched her breasts, huh?
Oh my God.
The trucker thinks fine. Her dad's a trucker, it's not weird. Spanky drives them to the contest in LA. They just about get to the contest on time and find a presenter who's clearly had exactly the right amount of coke to present a kids show in 1989.
Wow. Ladies, gentlemen, children, siblings, animals.
Jimmy plays one game of Ninja Gaiden and that gets him to the final, and then why not slip an advert for the Universal Studios tour in your Nintendo advert? Adverts within adverts, it's advertception. All the parents and the kid catcher come together for a big chase scene around the studio tour buses and behind the King Kong set. Somehow Jimmy ends up above the contest set and there's a lift right down to where the final is being held. Mr. Putnam has not seen a lift before.
What the hell is that?
1 hour, 24 minutes and 28 seconds into this film, American audiences finally get their first glimpse of Super Mario Bros. 3.
So Mario Brothers 3!
The reveal is suitably epic, and they have 10 minutes to score as many points as they can. You notice very quickly that the points counters with the little running knights have nothing to do with what's happening in the game. Their dad turns up, enthusiastic, changed forever by the power of Nintendo. Corey yells to find a warp.
Reno, find the warp, dude! Find the warp!
Remember that nobody has ever seen this game before, and also it's about points, so I'm not sure how finding a warp is supposed to help anyway. Also, Jimmy's inexplicably really bad at Mario 3. Like, basic stuff, jumping into enemies and whatever that he'd known not to do from the first Super Mario Bros. And anyway, he was just playing Ninja Gaiden. Somehow he knows to fly up in the fortress to get the warp whistle.
Found the secret passageway!
There's no story reason for this, it's just a cool bonus secret for kids who saw this film before they got Mario 3. Plus they get to show a glimpse of World 4. What are those big Koopa Troopers all about? Bet you want to buy the hottest new Nintendo game and find out! Jimmy wins $50,000, but no kid watching this in 1989 cares. They just got to see Mario 3. The contest cures Jimmy's autism, and you can tell because he does a big smile, then it's the epilogue. On the way home, Jimmy gets all the parents to pull over
California!
Just pull over.
then runs into a big dinosaur-shaped gift shop that's somehow unlocked and unstaffed, and opens his lunchbox. All the family and the evil stepfather look at his holiday photos and...
I guess he just wanted to leave her in a place where she was happy.
That's it. That's been Jimmy's motivation all along, and the only way he could achieve it was to get really good at Nintendo and in the process, sort of incidentally, win $50,000. He leaves the lunchbox in the dinosaur and goes to hug his dad, and then the mum says he should take all the boys home and they'll talk later, so I guess they're getting remarried. Sure, why not? What's weird to me is that he's taking Haley as well. She kisses the boys on their cheeks and Jimmy kisses back because putting the lunchbox in the dinosaur has cured all the residual autism not cured by winning the video games contest, but is she like their sister now? Wasn't she going to buy a house with her dad or something? They just fully kidnap Haley at the end of this film. It's a film about two boys who travel from Utah to California to kidnap a new sister to replace the dead one. The song we hear when they're on their way back in the truck is called I Found My Way, and it's sung by Sally Dworsky, who went on to sing Can You Feel the Love Tonight in The Lion King. It's a unique song just for this film, and I guess they were going to release a soundtrack or a single, but they never did. The only recording of this song is the one that's in this film. You won't find a recording of it that doesn't have truck noises on it. So you wouldn't make and release exactly this film today because of woke. But like I said, that's no bad thing, because you could release a better film that's very much like it. Woke, I'll remind you, just means having an awareness of social injustice, particularly racism, and you're either woke or you're not paying attention. So you just have to write the film better and be less lazy in your portrayals of neurodivergence. See, you can, as ever, joke about anything you want and talk about anything you want in films, books, games and other media. The only difference is that it's harder now. You can't do the lazy stereotypes anymore. You have to write actual characters with coherent backstories. You could definitely portray an autistic video game wizard today. The difference is though, before you show him being a wizard at video games, you'd show him maybe, I don't know, playing some video games. All Jimmy does in this film is play with blocks until he's put in front of Double Dragon and immediately scores 50,000 points. All you'd have to do is show him always being autistic, always being a bit reclusive, and the tragedy of his sister's death causes him to want to retreat even more and become really obsessed with video games and get really good at them. And then he can find out about this video game tournament as a way of getting to California, where he may sensibly leave exactly one picture of his sister, not literally all of them, to help him to move on from the tragedy and to focus more on the positive memories he has of her life. So that was The Wizard. Often criticised as being nothing more than a feature-length Nintendo advert, but it's much more than that. It's also a reductive portrayal of childhood autism. I hope you enjoyed this video anyway, something a little bit different. We didn't play any video games today, but I'm sure we will next time. So like and subscribe if you want to see that. Until then, thanks for joining me and Minerva for Film Night on the Retro Sofa.